The story of our Albolaryo grows darker and deeper with every chapter, and now we enter part 3. Before the tale unfolds, I invite you to subscribe, like, comment, and share this video so you will not be left behind in the mysteries and dangers that lie ahead. Prepare yourself, for part 3 begins now. Albolaryo Series, part 3, The Death of His Parents and the Great Sorrow. The days after Amaro's first battle with the aswang were uneasy. Though the children recovered, though the forest grew quiet again, Amaro knew the fight was not finished. Evil did not retreat forever. It waited, watched, and struck when least expected. Yet, for a short time, the village found peace. Fishermen returned to the sea with nets full of fish. Farmers saw their crops rise tall and golden, and laughter returned to the houses. Still, beneath that peace lay tension. People now looked at Amaro not only with hope, but with expectation. He was no longer just a boy. He had become their shield. Lucio and Catalina noticed the change in him. He no longer laughed easily. His eyes carried the weight of nights filled with dreams, battles, and whispers from unseen places. He worked beside his father, but always with a distant silence. "You are too young to carry such a face," Lucio told him one evening as they mended nets by the shore. "Your shoulders are heavy already." Amaro gave a faint smile. "It feels as if the world presses down, Papa." Lucio laid a hand on his shoulder. "Remember this. You are not the world's alone. You are our son first. Do not forget to live." Catalina, meanwhile, prayed harder each night. She lit candles before the Santo Niño and whispered to the Virgin Mary, "Protect my son. Guard him from envy, from shadows, from sorrow." Deep inside, she feared the spirits would ask too much of Amaro too soon. One morning, as dawn broke and the roosters crowed, a strange sound echoed through the village. A crow landed on the roof of Lucio's house, black as midnight, its eyes red like embers. It cawed loudly 3 times before flying toward the mountains. The old women of the village muttered among themselves, "A crow at dawn! It is an omen! Death walks close." Lucio spat on the ground. "Superstitions," he said, but even he looked uneasy. Catalina, however, felt her heart sink. She touched the crucifix around her neck and prayed silently. Amaro himself said nothing, but in his chest, he felt a tightness he could not explain. The gathering clouds, that same week, a new sickness spread, not among children this time, but among animals. Goats bleated in pain, their bellies swollen. Chickens lay lifeless in their coops without wounds. Even a carabao collapsed suddenly in the field, eyes rolling back. The villagers grew restless again. "The spirits are angry," they said. Or worse, the aswang return. Lucio tried to calm them. Not every shadow is an aswang. Not every illness is a curse. But he too felt something darker at work. Amaro examined the animals. He placed his hand on the carabao's head, whispering prayers. For a moment, he felt the same energy surge through him as before, but it was weaker this time, almost as if something resisted. The carabao's breathing slowed, then stopped altogether. Amaro pulled back, shaken. He had not failed before. Catalina saw the fear in his eyes. "Do not blame yourself," she said softly. "Sometimes even the strongest hands cannot turn fate." But Amaro knew this was no ordinary sickness. Something unseen had entered their village again. It was on a moonless night that it struck. Lucio and Amaro were out by the shore, pulling nets from the water, when they saw it, a glow in the distance, orange against the darkness. At first, they thought it was torches. Then they heard the screams. "Amaro, your mother!" Lucio cried. They dropped everything and ran back toward the village. The glow grew brighter. Flames licked the sky. When they reached their home, it was already ablaze. Fire roared from the nipa roof, swallowing bamboo walls. Neighbors rushed with buckets of water, but the fire spread unnaturally fast, as if fed by unseen hands. "Catalina!" Lucio shouted, trying to rush inside, but the flames pushed him back with scorching heat. Amaro cried out, his chest burning with fear. He saw shadows flicker in the fire, shapes too dark, too twisted to be human. He knew then that this was no accident. The aswang had returned, and this time They struck at the heart of his life. Without thinking, Amaro rushed forward. Heat seared his skin, smoke filled his lungs, but he pushed through the flames. Inside, he found Catalina collapsed on the floor, coughing violently. He lifted her in his arms, stumbling back toward the door. Amaro? Lucio pulled them out as neighbors threw water to open a path. Together, they laid Catalina on the ground. She gasped for air, her face pale, her lips trembling. Amaro, Lucio, she whispered. Amaro clutched her hand. Stay with us, Mama, please. But her eyes already looked beyond them. She smiled faintly, her other hand brushing Amaro's cheek. You have light, Anak. Guard it well. And with that, her breath left her. Amaro froze. The world around him seemed to vanish. He heard nothing, saw nothing, only the stillness of his mother's face. Lucio roared in grief, clutching her body. The neighbors wept, some praying, some turning their faces away. Amaro fell to his knees, his hands trembling. For the first time since his birth, he felt powerless. As the fire died and the ashes settled, Amaro's eyes caught something at the edge of the trees, a figure standing in the darkness. Its body was thin, its face hidden, but its red eyes glowed with cruel triumph. Rage surged through Amaro. He stood, his bolo trembling in his grip. Coward, he shouted into the night. Come to me. But the figure only hissed, a sound that chilled the blood before fading into the shadows. Apolando stepped beside him, placing a hand on his shoulder. They will not face you yet. They strike where it hurts most. This is only the beginning. Amaro's jaw tightened, his eyes burning with grief and fury. Then I will find them. Even if it takes my life, I will end them. The days that followed were heavy with mourning. The village gathered for Catalina's wake. Prayers filled the air, candles flickered by her coffin, and neighbors offered food and comfort. Lucio sat silently beside her, his face carved with sorrow. He had been a strong man all his life, but now he looked broken, his eyes hollow. Amaro stood nearby, unable to cry. His grief was too deep, too raw for tears. Instead, it burned inside him, a fire hotter than the one that had taken his mother. Many came to whisper to him. She was proud of you, they said. She believed in your gift. But their words fell hollow. At night, Amaro lay awake, staring at the ceiling. He replayed her last words again and again. You have light, Anak. Guard it well. He swore then that her death would not be in vain. The village mourned with Amaro and Lucio, but when the last candle was blown out and the prayers ended, only silence remained inside their house. Without Catalina's laughter, without her gentle hands preparing food or her soft voice guiding prayers, the home felt empty, hollow, like a body without breath. Lucio spent long hours staring at the sea. Once he had found peace in its rhythm, but now it seemed endless and cruel. His broad shoulders sagged, his eyes dim. Amaro, meanwhile, threw himself into work. He repaired nets, fetched water, helped neighbors, anything to keep from sitting still. Yet, no matter how hard he tried, Catalina's absence clung to him. Her voice echoed in his mind. Her smile haunted his dreams. Sometimes, late at night, he thought he heard her whispering his name. He would wake suddenly, rush to the window, but find only shadows and the rustle of trees. One evening, as the sun dipped low, a fisherman stumbled into the village. His clothes were torn, his skin pale, and his arm bled from deep scratches. He gasped, "Something attacked me, out at sea. Not fish, not man, something with wings." The villagers gathered in fear. "Aswang," they muttered. "They grow bolder." Amaro knelt beside the man, pressing herbs to his wound, whispering prayers. The bleeding slowed, but the fear in the man's eyes remained. "They waited until I was alone," he said, trembling. They whispered from the water. Then claws struck from above. Amaro clenched his fists. "They are hunting us." Lucio placed a hand on his son's shoulder. "Then we must be ready." But in his heart, Lucio knew readiness was not enough. The darkness was not hunting the village, it was hunting his son. A few nights later, the air grew strangely still. No dogs barked, no owls cried, even the waves seemed muted. The village held its breath, sensing something unnatural. Amaro could not sleep. He sat by the doorway, bolo in hand. Lucio joined him, holding his own blade. "Your mother once told me," Lucio said quietly, "that a man's strength is not in his arm, but in his heart. Tonight we will see if mine still beats strong." Amaro looked at his father, surprised. Lucio had always been calm, firm, never speaking of fear. Now his eyes carried a shadow of resignation. "Papa," Lucio forced a faint smile. "Whatever happens, remember this. You are my son. No darkness can change that." Before Amaro could reply, the silence broke. A shriek split the night, followed by the sound of wings beating heavily. Shadows swept over the rooftops. Dogs howled in terror. "They've come," Lucio said, rising to his feet. Shapes descended from the sky, figures half bird, half human, their claws gleaming, their eyes glowing red. They swooped down, circling the house. Lucio shouted, "Stay behind me," and swung his bolo at the first creature that dove. Steel met flesh, and the aswang screeched, retreating into the air. Amaro rushed forward, light already pulsing from his hand. He thrust it toward another attacker, and the creature burst into smoke with a shriek. But more came. 5, 6, maybe more, swarming like vultures. The villagers shouted from their houses, but dared not step outside. Only father and son stood against the assault. Lucio fought fiercely, his blade flashing, his body strong despite age. But he was only human. Claws raked across his arm, blood splattering. He gritted his teeth, striking back. "Papa!" Amaro cried. "I am fine," Lucio roared, though his face twisted in pain. Another creature lunged. Amaro raised his glowing hand, but too late, its claw pierced Lucio's side. Lucio staggered, dropping to one knee. "No!" Amaro shouted, rage flooding him. Light blazed from his hand, brighter than ever, burning 3 creatures at once into ash. The rest screeched and fled, vanishing into the night. Silence fell again, broken only by Lucio's ragged breathing. Amaro knelt beside his father, pressing his hands against the wound. "Hold on, Papa. Please, I can heal you." Lucio coughed, blood staining his lips. He touched Amaro's face with trembling fingers. "No, Anak, this wound is too deep. Even light cannot hold back what must come." Tears blurred Amaro's vision. "Don't leave me. Not you too." Lucio gave a faint smile. "Your mother is waiting, and I am tired." His eyes softened. "But you, Amaro, you must not tire. You must walk the path laid before you. Do not turn away. Promise me." "I promise," Amaro whispered, voice breaking. Lucio's hand fell, his chest stilled. The strong fisherman, the quiet father, was gone. Amaro's cry tore through the night, raw and broken. Villagers peeked from their homes, weeping at the sight of the boy kneeling beside his father's lifeless body. The orphaning of Amaro was complete. The next day, the village gathered once more in mourning. 2 coffins now lay side by side, Catalina and Lucio, husband and wife, taken within weeks of each other. Candles flickered, rosaries whispered, but the grief was too heavy for words. Amaro stood alone, his face pale, his eyes hollow. He had not slept, had not eaten. He stared at the coffins, his body trembling not from fear, but from sorrow too deep for his ears. Apo Lando placed a hand on his shoulder. "The spirits test you, boy. They take to see if you will break. Do not let them win." Amaro nodded faintly, but inside he felt shattered. As the coffins were lowered into the earth, the sky darkened, though it was midday. Thunder rumbled in the distance. Some villagers crossed themselves, whispering that even the heavens mourned. Amaro clenched his fists. "If the spirits want me broken, they will fail. I will not break. I will burn." That night, Amaro returned to the house alone. The bamboo walls still smelled of smoke, the silence louder than any scream. He lit the lampara, its light trembling, and sat by himself. He touched the crucifix his mother had given him, then the bolo his father had carried. Both were heavy in his hands, heavy with memory. Tears finally came. He wept until his body shook, until his voice was hoarse, until the lampara flickered low. When at last he lifted his head, his eyes no longer held the softness of a boy. They burned with the fire of loss, of rage, of unshakable resolve. The path of the Albolaryo was no longer just destiny, it was necessity. The nights that followed the burial were heavy and long. The once lively home of Lucio and Catalina stood like a hollow shell, filled only with the sound of wind passing through the bamboo walls. Amaro slept little, his dreams haunted not by spirits this time, but by the faces of his parents. His mother's gentle smile, his father's steady gaze, both now gone, taken by fire and claw. The villagers pitied him, offering food, inviting him to sleep in their homes. But Amaro always refused. "This is still my house," he said softly, "and I must keep it." He spent his days in silence. He repaired what he could, swept the floors, patched the roof. He cooked simple meals for himself, though he hardly ate. It was not just grief that weighed him down. It was the growing fire inside his chest, the mix of sorrow and rage, the refusal to let their deaths mean nothing. One evening, as Amaro sat by the lampara, staring at his father's bolo, a whisper came from the darkness. "They took your parents, and they will take more, unless you strike first." Amaro froze. He knew the voice was not human. He glanced around, but saw only shadows. "Who are you?" he demanded. The whisper chuckled. "One who has walked both paths as you do. The aswang fear you, yet they hunger for your fall. If you let grief consume you, they win. If you rise, you become their bane." Amaro gritted his teeth. "Tell me how." The voice faded, leaving only silence. But deep inside, Amaro understood it was not guidance he lacked, but courage. The next morning, Apolando came to the house. His back was bent, his steps slow, but his eyes were sharp as ever. "Amaro," he said gently, "I grieve with you. Your mother and father were good people. Their loss is heavy." Amaro bowed his head. "I could not save them." The old man shook his head. "You are not God. You are not the keeper of every life. But you are chosen to stand where others cannot. That is why the darkness strikes you hardest. It wants to break you before you rise." "I feel broken already," Amaro admitted. Apolando placed a hand on his shoulder. "Sorrow is not weakness, boy. It is the fire that tempers steel. Do not run from it. Carry it. Let it sharpen you." Amaro looked into his eyes. "Then teach me everything you know." The elder nodded slowly. "So be it. If you are ready, you will walk the path not just of healer, but of warrior. The Albolaryo stands not only against sickness, but against the unseen." From that day, Amaro's mourning turned into discipline. Apolando visited daily, teaching him prayers older than the church, chants passed down from Babaylan of long ago. Catalina had given him herbs, but Apolando gave him rituals. How to bind wounds, not just of flesh, but of spirit. How to use salt and oil as shields. How to speak words that cut like blades against creatures of the night. By day, Amaro practiced with Lucio's bolo, swinging until his arms ached, his body drenched in sweat. By night, he memorized incantations, repeating them until his voice was hoarse. The villagers watched from afar, whispering. Some feared he would become too close to the spirits. Others prayed he would save them. But no one doubted anymore that Amaro was walking a road no one else dared tread. One evening, Apolando brought Amaro to the river where he had once seen shadows in the water. "This is where the veil is thin," the elder said. "If you can stand here through the night, the spirits will test you. If you endure, you will earn their respect. If you falter, they may claim you." Amaro nodded. He set down salt by his feet, held the crucifix in one hand, and his father's bolo in the other. The night grew cold. The water rippled, though no wind blew. Faces rose from the current, pale and crying. Hands reached toward him, voices wailing, "Join us, Amaro, join us!" He tightened his grip, whispering prayers, refusing to move. The river grew darker. A shadow rose, taller than any man, its mouth wide, its teeth sharp. "You cannot protect them," it hissed. "You could not even protect your parents." The words pierced his chest. His grief surged, threatening to drown him. For a moment, he wanted to collapse, to surrender. Then he remembered Catalina's last words. "You have light, Anak. Guard it well. And Lucio's, do not lose yourself in the shadows." Amaro lifted his glowing hand. Light poured forth, striking the shadow. The river hissed, steam rising, and the spirits wailed before sinking back into the depths. When dawn came, Apolando returned. Amaro stood pale and broken. You faced them, the elder said with pride. Now you carry not just sorrow, but strength. On the 7th day after Lucio's burial, Amaro returned to the graves of his parents. He knelt before them, laying fresh flowers he had gathered from the hills. I could not save you, he whispered, voice trembling. But I will honor you. I will use the light you gave me. I will protect this village, this land, from the darkness that took you. He placed his father's bolo on the ground and lifted it high. I vow, by your memory, by your love, that I will not rest until the aswang and all creatures of the night are driven away. I am Amaro, son of Lucio and Catalina, and I will be the Albolaryo. The wind stirred, carrying his words into the trees. For the first time since their deaths, Amaro felt not only grief, but a fierce clarity. His great sorrow had become his greatest strength. The villagers saw him differently after that day. No longer just the boy touched by spirits, no longer just the orphan of Lucio and Catalina. He was now something else. Young, yes, but with eyes that carried storms. Children followed him with awe. Men bowed their heads in respect. Women prayed his name in gratitude. And in the shadows of the forest, unseen eyes watched him with unease. The creatures of the night knew his path had begun. Amaro was no longer just a boy marked by omens. He was a son forged by loss, a spirit tempered by grief, a warrior shaped by sorrow, and the world of the spirits trembled.